So I hope you guys all had a good Thanksgiving, however you celebrate, whether you celebrate it as a national holiday or just an opportunity to get together with friends and family, or a moment to take pause and think about what areas you're grateful for in your own lives. So that is actually a focus of my sermon today, is the importance of having gratitude. And it's more than just being thankful one day out of the year. It's good to set aside time each day, each week, whatever routine works for you time-wise, to actually take a moment and think about all the things that you have in your life that you can be thankful for. I spent 25 years working as a social worker for people who are in great need. And either, mental health, drug and alcohol, medical issues, domestic violence, and, there were so many times where, it helped for me to kind of take a step back and realize how much I had, and how, my kids arguing was normal sibling stuff. And so sometimes, it can seem like the struggles that we have each day are overwhelming, and they are. But, it's important to also think about all the things that we have that are strengths that actually help us survive during those times of struggle. And so, this is kind of looking for ways to keep perspective and an attitude of gratitude during times of strife, which I often feel I'm in these days. So I came across this Estonian proverb, and kind of speaks to can you be thankful for what you have rather than just focus on what you don't. So a rabbi was walking in the country when he came across an old farmer working in the fields. "How is it going?" he asked. "Terrible," the farmer began to recite his litany of troubles. "The tomato crop failed this year, the apples had worms in them, the corn crop was a disaster. Things couldn't get any worse. My kids were sick. My wife broke her arm. Nothing has gone well. No signs of anything getting better. Trouble on every side. Can't pay the bills. If I didn't have bad luck, I wouldn't have any luck at all. Things just couldn't get worse. It's been a terrible year." God looked down and spoke to the rabbi. "If he thinks this is bad, wait until he sees next year." The rabbi continued walking and came across another farmer in the adjoining field. "How's it going?" he asked. The farmer replied, "Doing pretty good. The corn crop is not the best in the world, but it will give us a little money. The apples weren't as good as last year, but they sure made some good applesauce. My kids were sick, but they're getting better now. We paid off half the bills this year, so I'm thankful for that. We're a happy family and we've got food on the table." God said to the rabbi, "Well, if he thinks that's good, just wait until he sees what I'll do for him next year." An old proverb says, "He who does not think for the little will not think for much." When times are tough, are you more likely to be the first farmer or the second? Vicki King, who's an author and speaker, she says, "You won't be happy with more until you're happy with what you have." So my focus is on Luke 17 verses 11 through 19. It's the story of Jesus coming across the 10 lepers. So now on his way to Jerusalem, Jesus traveled along the border between Samaria and Galilee. As he was going into the village, 10 men who had leprosy met him. They stood at a distance and called out in a loud voice, "Jesus, Master, have pity on us." When he saw them, he said, "Go show yourselves to the priest." And as they went, they were cleansed. One of them, when he saw he was healed, came back praising God in a loud voice. He threw himself at Jesus' feet and thanked him, and he was a Samaritan. Jesus asked, "Were not all 10 cleansed? Where are the other 9? Has no one returned to give praise to God except this foreigner?" Then he said to him, "Rise and go. Your faith has made you well." So kind of the lessons of the scripture are, one, God's mercy is for us all. Doesn't matter if you're rich or poor or sick or well, man, woman, child, people of all races. It's for us all. There were 10 lepers living in rejection because of their disease, yet God had mercy on them and Jesus healed them. Jesus delights in bestowing his mercy upon us. Jesus had compassion. He always has compassion. May the Lord give me a passion for souls as he has. May I be willing to reach out to those who are seen as unclean. And it also teaches us that it often takes a step of kind of belief. The lepers first had to take a step towards proving their cleanliness to the priests, who were the ones who could judge someone as clean or unclean. So it wasn't like Jesus healed them and then told them to go check. They said, go and you will be clean. And so it was in their taking that step of faith that they actually were healed. So this Jesus' care for others should bring out some sense of gratitude and thanksgiving for those whose lives he touches. The story of the 10 lepers is an example of literal healing offered through Jesus. And the thanksgiving is only offered in response by one of those who is healed. The story of the grateful Samaritan in scripture reading offers us another image of one who matters to Jesus and should therefore matter to us. The story draws attention to 2 points. Jesus cares for the marginalized, and the appropriate response to Jesus is a response of recognition and gratitude. And it seems throughout biblical stories where Jesus has connection with those who are marginalized and does healing, that they seem to be the ones most willing to recognize the miracle and offer thanksgiving. The people who are considered the religious leaders who are already supposed to know God seem to not take any recognition of what is happening around them, and that in that reaching out to those who are marginalized, that Jesus is doing God's work. Jesus is in the region between Samaria and Galilee, and it's a space and a cross of kind of social boundary lines. And so his interaction with lepers and also with someone who is a Samaritan is seen outside of the norm of the day. And as he enters the village, the 10 lepers approach, calling out to him but keeping their distance. And we need to, I guess, take note of how do we reach out and accept those who in our society are considered unclean or outside of the norm. And Christopher brought to mind that kind of how the Samaritans are viewed as a sect of Jewish tradition. Many people of Islam are viewed as outsiders in our society now. And we also obviously have ethnic and racial groups who are also being targeted as outsiders. But it's important for us to kind of evaluate who are the outsiders to us personally, and how do we engage and interact with them. Only after giving Thanksgiving do we learn that the one that returned is the Samaritans. So these unappealing and different and unwelcome outsiders, along with outsiders in general, are always received positively by Jesus. There's no doubt that there is something to be learned about the people who live on the margins of our community, who are treated as invisible or unlovely because of how they look or who they are or where they come from or what they believe. And Jesus clearly notices those people, and he calls us to love them. We might also look not only for those people who are outside of our kind of cultural norms, but also internally, what are the pieces inside us that we might see as unwelcome or unloved? And so how do we let that love into ourselves and to others? Because there may be aspects of shadow within us, not just outside. And so I have a little bit of a discussion. So, these are the 10 lepers were healed. This is a time of discussion. You could choose to just discuss the story in general, but these were kind of 3 I guess questions that came to mind for me. So have you given thanks to God for healing in your own life? You may have experienced areas of great struggle and time where we needed God's intervention. And did you find the presence and strength there? And so when I work as a chaplain, often when I visit people, you first one thing happens, you walk in the room and they're like, who sent you, am I dying? Because they figure the only reason a chaplain would be showing up to see them is if they have some disease and no one told them about it. But the other is, there's often this conversation about, I'm not religious. And so for me, I talk to them about, it's not about religion. I want to help you find that place of spiritual strength where you find joy, love, hope, strength. And so for me, this question doesn't have to be about literally God's healing grace, but in those times of struggle, did you find healing by some outside power and strength? And were you able to recognize that and give thanks in that moment? How do you show your thankfulness and gratitude? Is it about just offering up prayers of thanksgiving, or do you actually put that into some sort of action in gratitude for the extra gifts that you have? And then have you reached out to people that you consider unclean? And what did that look like? So those are, 5 minutes. Okay guys, does anybody have something they want to share? Interesting conversation to share?
I nominate Christopher.
So, for how do you show your gratitude to God? I struggle with that because it's just so I'm always once I achieve one step or one goal, I'm always trying to plan the next thing, and it's hard for me to be grateful in the moment because I'm never in that moment. Once I get where I want to go, I'm always somewhere else in my life. So it wasn't necessarily how I show it, but more how do you need to show it more? So just being grateful for what I have and where I'm at is something I need to do.
Being in the present is really important.
Well, I was also saying for the last one, he pretty much does it every day. Just the church being open and affirming is, reaching out to the unclean.
Mm-hmm.
And on Facebook and stuff, he's constantly having conversations with people that are reaching out to him, and he's helping them find a place for themselves and stuff. So I feel like that's part of it, and he's helping that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Way to go, Ava. You gotta get the references in.
Anybody else? No other thoughts? Okay. I guess I'm encouraging us all to be thankful even when we're having difficult circumstances. And that kind of thankfulness is based in faith. And, I've had many personal, tragedies, hardships, where I just didn't know how I was going to get to the other side of it. And, I knew at my core it would be okay, because it just always is. And it doesn't always look the way I want it to look, and it doesn't always look the way I hoped it would look, or the answer isn't what I thought the answer should be. And yet, it's that taking that step out in faith and just moving forward, even when it feels like there's just no way to move. And I think that is a sense of thankfulness. I believe and I have faith that I'm giving thanks in advance for whatever solution is coming my way. And so I think it's sort of, that's kind of how I've experienced it. And if you only praise, God on the good days, then that's more like a business arrangement. You give me what I want, I say thank you. Did you have something to say?
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's okay.
No, I just, when you were talking, it really resonated with me because one of the thoughts that I'm trying to own this Christmas that I heard before I never really understood is along the lines of this idea that the idea of being grateful, even when you're really despairing, to me used to sound like a smack of like religiosity. And I was like, screw that. Like if I'm sad, I'm gonna be sad. But now I see it totally different in that it's like, to me, this ability to be grateful, I understand as God's gift to us of free will, is this idea that irrespective of your circumstances, like I can stand in hell at the when nobody can take that place in me that can still stand and be grateful for the little joy of just breathing, right? Or if I've lost love, the fact that I had it at all, like that ability is actually in a way the ultimate spirituality, right? It's this gift that nobody can take away from you. And it's a thought that I got while reading this book that's just been amazing to me. I recommend it, Answer for Meaning by Victor Frankl. And he talked about how the ultimate heroism of somebody, for example, that walked into a gas chamber with their head held up high. Even though maybe nobody will ever hear the story, it's recorded, we all can understand that that's the ultimate heroism. There's something in us, some spiritual core that understands that the ability to stand with the human dignity, even in the face, or to just aspire to higher angels, even in the face of just beyond what you could possibly fathom being painful. And in life is beautiful for all of us, like no one leaves life unscathed, is really like the ultimate, I think, joy that we have, this ability to hold on to that and not be competitive. But thank you for sharing.
No,
I think it helped me to kind of concretize this new idea that I'm playing around with. Yeah, it's gratitude that's the connection between this ability to sort of take suffering and transform it is really important.
Yeah, no, and that's wonderful. And yeah, and I would say, own your sadness too. I think we often run away from the painful emotions, and there is actually, I don't know, there's something that can transform you if you can hold on to that place of that human dignity and strength, even in those times. And so, sometimes it's important to stay there in the sadness for a little bit. And I know that, many of us are experiencing horrible circumstances now. In this room you may have struggles, in your family, in our communities, in our nation, in our world. I'm just asking us to all be thankful for that place, like where we can find that core of our humanity. And that when you can do that, that really is the kind of ultimate faith, spiritual connection. The other is to be thankful when there is good works in your life, and to take the time and actually, stop and smell the roses, but also stop and recognize the accomplishment, the gift, the connection to another human being. That is an actual form of worship, to be able to stop in the moment and praise what you are experiencing in your life. Don't miss the opportunity to take that moment and give praise. The other is to make sure that your thankfulness leads to action. We talk a lot about living out our faith, that, church isn't, a room where people meet on Sunday. It's a body of people who are out in the world. And so, are you being, urged to do something? Are you willing to take that step out in faith and believe that whatever you need at some level will be provided, whether it's provided through the love of family and friends or a higher power or whatever? Are you feeling urged to do something and you're holding back because you just aren't willing to take that step? So I encourage you to look for those opportunities of gratitude where a door might be being opened and presented to you, and a path, and can you accept that gift of an opportunity. So, is it possible to give thanks in times of difficulty? So I came across this story from 1929, not a good year here in the U.S. In 1929, a group of ministers in Northeast, all graduates of the Boston School of Theology, gathered to discuss how they should conduct their Thanksgiving services. Things were about as bad as they could get, with no sign of relief. The bread lines were depressingly long, the stock market had plummeted, and the term the Great Depression seemed to be the best description for the mood of the country. After all, what was there to be thankful for? Should they just dispense with Thanksgiving service this year? Dr. William Steiger rallied the group and he said, "This is not the time to give up Thanksgiving, just the opposite. This is the time for the nation to get matters in perspective and thank God for blessings always present, but perhaps suppressed due to intense hardship." Today, this is still true. The most intense moments of thankfulness are not found in times of plenty, but when difficulties abound. We were talking about the fire victims in Paradise. It's amazing how remarkable and giving human beings are. Our systems do not work. Our corporations, our government often isn't the force that comes to the aid of those in need and presents an opportunity of giving for all that we have. It's the individuals. And that happens, we see it over and over again with, tornadoes, hurricanes, fires. It's horrifying that that's what it takes for us to see that level of commitment to serve one another, but we do, we rally. And so, dismissing the opportunity to give thanks for what we have during hard times is a mistake. So, we need to be looking at how do we serve those vulnerable populations that are under attack or are experiencing some national communal tragedy. An attitude of gratitude is developed over time. It's not, like you wake up, you go home today and you say, "I have changed. I am now living with an attitude of gratitude." It actually takes a commitment. It takes a change in the way you're living out your life. And so, John F. Kennedy said, "The highest appreciation is not uttered words, but to live by them." I had a professor tell me one time we needed to hold people to their rhetoric. I like that saying a lot, because I worked for lots of government entities who espoused great desire to help others, and I would often call them in their stuff and say, "I'm going to hold you to what you're saying right now in this press conference. I'm holding you to your rhetoric." So how do we not just utter words, but actually put those words into action? With lepers in mind, think about your words and your actions. Do they represent love and healing? Today, you have touched more people in an hour than that man had touched in years. He longed for a loving touch more than he longed for food. More than he needed water, he needed love. And before he was healed, while there was still a tremendous risk, Jesus was willing to give him that touch. Are you willing to reach out and touch those who you perceive as unclean or unworthy in your time, with your time and care?
So good stuff. In the spirit of the idea of giving thanks and being thankful and talking about Thanksgiving, one thing that we do want to acknowledge as well is the pain associated with this time of year, especially for a lot of Native friends that I have. This is a rough time of year because of the history of this holiday, which is, personally, I don't celebrate Thanksgiving. I do a Friendsgiving sometime the week of. That's kind of how I get around that, because I like the idea of sharing food with other people and being thankful for the ones that you have and enjoying your family. I just don't do it on the day of. But I had a friend of mine named Kareem that, hello cutie, she's so cute. I'm sorry, I got distracted. She's adorable. I had a friend of mine named Kareem
Turned it up.
that wrote an article about being Native and what it's like on Thanksgiving to be a Native. And I've read a few other articles that kind of said, you know, at least enjoy Native foods during Thanksgiving and honor that pain that was caused by colonizers on Thanksgiving. I thought it was a wonderful challenge to present to you all today. Next year, 2019, maybe try preparing some Native foods and just take a moment at your family gathering to honor that pain, because it's something that we as white citizens need to at least pay attention to and admit that our heritage is tainted with some pretty awful stuff. And speaking of feast, there's a dinner in Scripture where Jesus is gathered around friends. And Jesus used two elements at the table to signify something powerful. Jesus was ultimately saying that this movement has to be bigger than their own life. It has to be. It's got to go beyond our own existence. Jesus was walking to the execution stake, and he knew that was going to happen, and Jesus invited the disciples to do the same thing, to take up the same cause, to take up their cross and follow me. And I would think that would have to be a pretty tough thing to hear. Like, take up your cross and follow me to the execution stake. Follow me to the cross. And that's what lies before each of us today, is this promise to ourselves that we're not going to let this movement die with us. No matter the cost, we're going to take the cause of Christ to the end. And we're going to try our best to make sure that legacy of love and justice and peace endures beyond our own lifetime. But in that process, the one thing that people cannot take from us is our joy and our gratitude for the ones that we have. No matter where we come from, no matter what we struggle with, we can all be thankful for loved ones, either family or friends. We can all be thankful for the beauty that surrounds us in creation. We can all be thankful for every breath that we take. In being grateful and thankful, like Jody said, we refuse to allow other people attempting to oppress us to take something from us. I think Christina said that wonderfully. Refusing to let them take something from you. I invite you today not only to recognize the initiative that lies before us in cleaning up this mess of a realm that we all dwell in, and it is a mess. I invite you to remember as you work to restore this world and to make it better for the coming generation and their coming generation and the following, so on and so forth, that you refuse to let anyone steal your thankfulness and your joy. And until next week, may the peace of the Lord Christ go with you wherever it may send you. May it guide you through the wilderness and protect you through the storms. May it bring you home rejoicing at the wonders that it shows you, and may it bring you home rejoicing once again into our doors. Grace and peace to you if you're